Here we are, another day in quarantine, and for dinner tonight I'm going to be making Garganelli pasta with a Ragu meat sauce. But before I start cooking, of course I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine, and I have another very special bottle that I picked up from Dame Restaurant here in Portland, Oregon. This is the Les Lunes Astral Blend out of California, and like my last video, I got some tasting notes on this wine because I haven't had it yet from my good friend Jessie, who works at Dame as well. So I'm going to read those for you very quickly. Miss Jessie says that this is one of her favorite California wine producers, which is pretty cool because there's a lot of them. She said that it's not quite a red, not quite orange or rosé. It was meant to break people's conception of skin contact wine that defies classification. It's a blend of Zinfandel, Pinot Noir, Carillon Rosé, and Colombar and Chenin Blanc. It's super fresh berry notes, delicate tannins, racy acidity. Ooh, Jessie. It's a porch pounder for a wine enthusiast. Chuggable, but thought-provoking at the same time. So I put a little chill on this, and I'm gonna open her up. Here we go. Oh, yes. Thank you, Dame Restaurant, for this delicious wine. If you are interested in natural wine and you live in Portland, definitely check out their website. It's all linked below. They're doing curbside pickup as well as delivery, same day delivery actually, so you can follow them on Instagram and see what wine selections they have available. I adore them and support them if you can. The pasta that I'm going to be making tonight is called Garganelli, and that is actually the shape of pasta that I'm going to be making. Garganelli is similar to penne in the sense that they're both tubular pasta and they're about the same size. The only difference is penne is extruded. The dough goes through a little machine and out a bit, so it turns into that hollow noodle shape. Garganelli is a sheeted pasta dough that gets cut into squares and then rolled. So it's similar because of the size and the shape, but different because there is going to be a seam on Garganelli. This is absolutely one of my favorite pasta shapes to make at home. It's really fun, seems to impress people, but it's easy. So my first step is going to be mixing and kneading the pasta dough, and then I'm going to let it rest for 30 minutes, and let's go. The ragu that I'm going to be making today is from this cookbook here, Cooking for Artists by Mina Stone. This is my favorite cookbook that I've owned. I've had it for 5 years now, and if you have the chance to even look through this cookbook, it's beautiful. There's art in it and delicious Greek food. So, recommend checking out this book. But the ragu that we're going to be making is very simple. Here it is. For the ragu, you're only going to need a few ingredients, which I love. So you will need 1 pound of ground beef. Here it is. You will need diced tomatoes from a can that is 14.5 ounces. So got ourselves some lovely tomatoes here. 1 medium-sized yellow onion. The spices that you're going to need are our old friend bay leaf, a whole whole cinnamon stick, 3 whole cloves, and a pinch of red chili flakes. You will also need freshly ground black pepper and our good friend kosher salt. Then to top it off, Parmesan. I mean, this is it right here. What else do you need? Nothing. This is it. Let's start. So I have my onion chopped up nice and small, and I am now going to warm up a good amount of olive oil in the bottom of this pan and start sauteing the onions just to get them translucent. We don't want any color on them. Here we go. So I'm just going to take blend oil, olive oil, a good drizzle into the bottom of my pan, adding all of my onion into the olive oil, a nice sizzle. Move the onions around in the olive oil to coat them. We're just going to slowly start to sweat these onions out till they get translucent. And then we're going to add spices and finally the meat and the onions. It's a very simple ragu, but tasty, one of my faves. I'm going to add a couple cranks of our black pepper into the onions, as well as a generous pinch of salt. Keep cooking these onions down. So the salt and pepper have been cooking with the onion for a couple minutes now, and I'm going to add in this little bowl of spices, the bay leaf, cinnamon, cloves, and red chili flake. I'm going to do this so that they start to bloom in the hot olive oil. The onions and spices have been cooking for 6-ish minutes now together. The onions are soft and translucent, and I can smell the spices now. That's really what you're looking for. So this entire time my heat's been on medium, and I'm going to now crank it up a little bit to medium high, and I'm going to start adding the beef kind of chunk by chunk. As you are browning the beef, you want to take some kind of wooden utensil to break it down into smaller chunks. That's what I'm doing right now, and I'm just going to let this continue to cook for probably 5 more minutes, just so that the beef really gets browned and cooked, releases all of its fat, and yeah, it smells very good. So our pasta dough has been resting now for over 30 minutes, and we're going to start rolling it out. Just a few tools that you're going to need for this process are a rolling pin. I'm going to roll my pasta dough through my pasta machine, pizza cutter, and a ruler. The tool that would actually be used to do this is called a bicicleta. I don't have one of those. This is going to be just fine. For rolling out the Garganelli, I'm bringing back my good old gnocchi board for this. That's the traditional way of making it. As you roll the noodle down the board, it's going to roll into a tube. Roll it down. Okay, so the first step that I'm going to do is cut this ball of dough into 4 so that I can run it through my pasta maker. I'm going to take 3 quarters and put it back into plastic wrap. Now I'm going to roll this out just a little bit so that I can run it through my pasta machine. It just needs to get flat enough to make it through the widest setting of the pasta machine. Something like this. This is great. Now that I have my pasta dough rolled out a little bit, I'm going to start running it through the pasta machine, starting on the lowest setting or the whitest setting, which on my pasta machine is 0. So I'm just going to run this through on 0, run it through on 1, run it through on 2, and then one last time on 3. All right, now that it's gone through the pasta machine a few times, we're gonna laminate it, doing our little pasta dough lamination trick, which is fold it into thirds, like this, and then in half, and then we're going to roll this out. We're doing this to make the dough stronger, get bubbles, air pockets out, and now we're gonna roll this now laminated dough through the pasta machine to get our desired thickness. I've taken all of my pasta dough and turned them into these sheets. The thickness on my pasta maker is a 5, so it's thin. You can see my hand through it, but it's not too thin and it's not too thick. It's kind of right in the middle. So what I'm going to do now is, one at a time, I'm going to measure out 2 inch by 2 inch squares on every pasta sheet and roll out the Garganelli as I go. The reason why I'm doing this is because you don't want your pasta dough to dry out. That's why I have it all stacked in between layers of pasta graph here. So I'm just gonna work with one sheet at a time, measure it out, roll it. You'll see how I do that in a second. I have some bench flour, just in case things start to get a little bit sticky. I'm also going to coat the outside of the pasta with flour as I roll. That way they don't get stuck to each other pre-boiling or pre-freezing. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started with that. Now I'm gonna start rolling out our little noodles. So what you're gonna wanna do is put some bench flour. You can use AP or 00, whatever you have handy, down so that when I roll my noodles, they'll kind of glide through this flour. I'm going to place my square onto my gnocchi board like a diamond, like this. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush, or if you have a dowel or a pencil, that's fine. I'm going to start wrapping this pasta sheet over my paintbrush, like so. And it's really important that you make sure that this last little edge here gets pressed down pretty firmly. That way it doesn't come apart when you put it into the boiling water. But yeah, this is what it'll look like. And then I'm just gonna roll it through that flour, and then I'm gonna continue on. So diamond onto my gnocchi board, my paintbrush, pressing as I go down, just like so. And I'm trying to get this last bit pressed down as much as you can. So when you're making pasta shapes, whether it be ravioli, tortellini, you want anywhere that it's gonna fold over on itself. So like say this. So say you're making a pasta shape and you have your sheet and you're gonna fold it over, and now you have 2 points coming together. You want to press down on them enough so that the 2 become 1. That way it cooks evenly. That way there's not thicker and thinner parts. With Garganelli, there probably is going to be thicker and thinner parts. You can see here's a little bit thicker, you know. So whenever you double over, you want the 2 to become 1. So that's what I'm trying to do with this. Garganelli is a little bit more rustic because it's made by hand. Some other pastas don't require as much finesse as this one does. It's gonna be tasty. So I finished rolling out all of my Garganelli. This is how much I got out of it, which is really amazing. This is what I'm gonna cook off for dinner tonight, and then I'm going to put this in the freezer like it is. It has a light dusting of flour on the bottom, light dusting of flour on top of the pasta, and tomorrow I will take it out of the freezer and put it into a different container, like a sealed container. So it's been sitting off of the heat with the cover on for a while, and what I'm going to do now is take out the amount that I'm going to use for dinner tonight, because this is more than we're going to eat right now. So I'm going to take out probably 3 to 4 spoonfuls and place it into this saute pan, which is where I'm going to end up placing the cooked Garganelli so that they can marry together. The ragu in this saute pan is warming up. We have a pot of boiling water going here. Before I add the Garganelli in, I'm just going to do like a small ladle of this salty water to kind of loosen up the ragu. A little bit looser, maybe a second spoonful. That looks nicer. 1 more spoonful. So I'm going to take the Garganelli from over here on the parchment paper and drop it into my boiling water. I'm going to let it boil for probably 5 to 6 minutes. So the noodles are done cooking. I'm going to use my wooden spoon to carry them from the water into my sauce now. Any water that gets carried over into our sauce, that's okay. I welcome it. All of the Garganelli are in the ragu now. The heat is still on low below, but this is pretty much done. I'm gonna take it over to show you how I'm gonna plate it now. Alright, so the last step to this dish is add Parmesan cheese. So I'm just going to grate a lot of Parmesan cheese. And maybe a little bit of finishing salt, just a sprinkle. So this is it. Here we are. Garganelli and ragu. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Eat pasta. Okay, bye.